Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today on takeaways from Microsoft Ignite. This will be presented by Joel Oleson, and he's just getting his PowerPoint and slide deck together, and we'll be showing that in a moment. This webinar is sponsored by Crocan Software. We're the makers of Nitro Studio, a forms and workflow platform for Microsoft 365 Teams and SharePoint. We're looking forward to this webinar. We were recently sponsored some events down in San Diego and Irvine, California, and we got some remarks from Joel and other MVPs about what went on at Ignite and exciting announcements regarding Teams and business process automation. So it was quite a good set of information and some really interesting things coming out. I've been around Microsoft many years, and I felt like this announcement, when they're coming out with an Ignite and what they were talking about with doing in Teams, was really quite interesting. It perked my interest, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, they're going to do stuff with Teams Premium, with Syntax, and many other things that Joel will tell you about that really leading this new kind of technology charge in terms of mobile, cloud-friendly type solutions. And we're right along with that with Crocan Software. Crocan Software builds solutions for the Microsoft 365 Teams space. And we are based in California, California small business. We're also in the GCC High. So anyone's interested in our Nitro Studio can talk to us. After that, we'd be glad to show you a demonstration of all its powerful forms and workflow capabilities, also our Nitro Engage bot, and how we are working right alongside with Microsoft and their Power Platform to enhance your ability to use Microsoft 365 and Teams to the best advantage, get the most you can out of it, and make it a really useful, practical tool for your business. So, Joel, you ready to get going on your side of things?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, let me get your screens over here, all right, and expand it to full size. Okay, this is what we're seeing right here.
Great.
Is that good?
So I just want to welcome everybody to the webinar. Today, you could say that Ignite itself was quite a whirlwind of announcements. And while a lot of what people focus on is just getting all those announcements out there, what I really want to do today is to help people understand what are some key takeaways. And I've kind of summarized those into 10 things. And that's the agenda today, is to kind of talk to you about those 10 things. Then I want to dive into those, help you understand what, not just new features, but to actually help you understand what's going on in the workplace, this hybrid workplace. What are some of these industry trends? Help you understand from a strategy and planning perspective. You could say there's a number of changes to licensing, especially with new licensing available, and we're going to start off right with that. But before we do, I want to just give you a little background on myself. I'm Joel Oleson. I spent 10 years at Microsoft, both in IT and in the marketing team. I'm an MVP and RD for the Microsoft 365 space. I've worked at a number of Fortune 500 companies, including Microsoft and Activision Blizzard and Konica. I now have a contract at Sony where I'm working with PlayStation. And I've been on this quest to go to every country in the world, and I'm down to 5 countries left. So if you've ever listened to anything, I always share where I'm at in the quest to go to every country. I'm going to number 5 in that, counting them down later this month. So I'll have 4 left for next year. Kind of exciting. I'm super excited about that. Anyway, I also am involved in some philanthropy projects around helping kids get access to education in Africa, and some nunneries in Mexico. Anyway, so our agenda for today is 2023 planning, right? What are some key takeaways from Ignite, and how can we actually take these back home into each of our organizations and understand what are some of these key takeaways? And before I dive into this, I just want to thank Crow Canyon Software for their sponsorship and making this possible. The events that we did with Crow Canyon here in Southern California and with a number of other partners, I think it was great to be able to provide that to the community. I understand there's still some people who weren't able to get out, and it's great to be able to review these things here with you today. So number one, I want to talk about Teams and Teams Premium and some of these room enhancements, which absolutely make the investment in Teams, and kind of where Teams is where a lot of us live in this new hybrid environment. Teams Premium, there's a lot of this. That was a major announcement. From my perspective, that's probably number one that people should be thinking about. What is Teams Premium? What does that mean from a deployment and security and labeling and webinars and virtual appointments, all those things? There's so many, I love the summaries and chapters. There's a ton of bundled of new capabilities that really kind of take things to the next level. And if there was one key takeaway, it's probably that one. If it was two, it would probably be around this Microsoft Syntex SharePoint administration, archiving, lifecycle management bundle of things. For those who've worked in the SharePoint space, there's a lot of stuff to unpack as it relates to governance and lifecycle management, backup, archiving straight to Azure. And with Syntex, the new summary capabilities where you can content AI integrated, the ability to do annotation on documents, as well as like the collaboration side of being able to do annotation. There's a lot to unpack there. When we talk about hybrid, Outlook and Teams both have a number of new hybrid features, which kind of gets us going with where Microsoft Places, a new announcement, brings us around room experiences and reservation experiences, better supporting it from a hybrid perspective as well. We'll dive into what Microsoft Places is and that announcement. Power Platform, yeah, a ton of announcements there, as you can expect. That's a major investment area. But the multi-user editing was a major announcement, and we'll talk about some of those controls there. The Viva suite with Viva Home, Viva Engage, Storylines, Pulse, Amplify Sales, Goals. There's so many things that actually happened in the Viva space as well to be aware of. I think we're up to like 8 applications plus now. So we'll dive into that new Viva Home that kind of brings that world together. And I understand a lot of you probably have no idea what Viva is even, let alone the fact that there's 8 of them. Microsoft 365 apps, ton of new apps, a number of Loop announcements, Clipchamp, bunch of new mobile apps, a lot of things to understand around design and creative as well as it relates to new Microsoft capabilities in the app space. So without further ado, let's dive in here. If you have any questions along the way, Krista is going to be monitoring the Q&A, and if there's any kind of contextual questions anyone has, we absolutely can address those along the way. From a time perspective, I'm going to leave the last. I'm going to leave some time for Crow Canyon and for any questions anybody has there, and definitely want Scott to be able to come back on and address us. As well, we'll save about 5-10 minutes, depending on how things go, at the end for additional questions. So, yeah, there's a lot of announcements, and what I don't want to do here is just give you a bunch of bullets. If you want to, you absolutely can go out to the Book of News. Highly recommend going out to the Book of News and just seeing what there was. And that's a very textual experience. What I want to do here is focus on a visual experience. So I'm going to actually avoid there being just tons and tons of text and actually focus on nice screenshots. So let's break down the Teams and Teams Rooms enhancements. If it's not clear, Microsoft seems to be focusing more on Teams, probably has more developers working on Teams than anything, except for maybe Windows. and who knows, maybe it is even more than Windows. IntelliFrame. So IntelliFrame is this enhanced focusing and framing of in-room meeting attendees. So whether it's people in the conference room and being able to focus on the faces of everyone in the conference room, or if somebody gets up to the whiteboard, being able to focus on what they're doing. So it's got this kind of intelligent experience of, it knows if you're sitting down and doing your thing, or if you're kind of waving your arms at a whiteboard, it absolutely recognizes the difference. And this is something that you don't even have to upgrade your cameras to get this. So that's really super cool. Last year they announced avatars. Avatars are now right around the corner. We know a little bit more about how avatars work, and I'm not going to dive too deep into the idea that this definitely helps with you're on camera so much in this new world, and people are working remote. The ability to use avatars, everybody gets 2 or 3 avatars, and essentially you can. I can imagine having one that's kind of more social and one that's more business, but that idea that essentially we can kind of even out the experience and have something that we can reduce the video fatigue, and it still feels like you're right there without having to put on your makeup in the morning or whatever, you know. And there's expressions and different things. This is that the picker where you can pick out your clothes and choose your avatars, your avatar backgrounds, and they work in together mode as well. This is kind of what that experience looks like. There's actually an app inside of Teams that the users will go into to create their avatars and turn them on. Once you've created them, you can then in your meeting go in and turn on your avatar. It is a tenant level setting, by the way. So, and in fact, you know, I don't want this just to be about announcing features. Let's talk about, is this appropriate? Is this something, you know what, there's going to be some companies are going to say, yeah, this is fantastic. Let's roll this out. Let's do a campaign around it. And there may be some companies where it's like, you know what, this feels like a game. We don't want to support avatars. At least it's better than the ones where you're a frog or a magician or whatever. Here, it's at least you're a human. So I think that it's something you may do with a pilot group, but you should think about this from a deployment perspective of how do you want to release this? The fact that it's an app, it probably is going to require a little bit of instruction on how to do this, but it's something that I think could be exciting for the M365 team to roll out to the organization. It is available in preview. There is a tap program where you can go get involved and get this turned on for your tenant, but it is something that you can control at a tenant level. The next thing is together mode. We've had together mode, but now you can actually create company scenes and you can even apply assigned seating. So let's get practical here. When would you use something like this? Well, let's talk about a panel. You know, not everybody needs to be in the panel, but if we can actually have a nice layout where you've got the host on one side, and then we can put our panelists in the layout, it makes a lot of sense. So don't just think about, you know, maybe there is a classroom setting from a school perspective, but I think for the most part, what together mode innovation also gives is the ability that when somebody sets it up, they can share it with everyone else. It's not just for themselves. We talked about avatars, but there's also Mesh for Teams. Mesh for Teams essentially has immersive mode, and this is a little bit later release. There is this technical adoption program. Here's the link here. You may be saying, how can I get these slides so I can follow this link? Feel free to grab a screenshot. I do encourage you. There's something like 3 different pilots, adoption programs that are going on inside of Teams. There's so much that's happening, especially with Teams Premium. that Mesh for Teams is its own little program too, or it's part of this TAP program. How do you get this? What does it mean to be in TAP? So the Teams TAP, they've got a beta channel for early testing of features. The private preview, whenever you hear private preview, that's absolutely more about validating. You know, it's less about testing and more about validating and helping drive adoption, get ready for what's coming. Then there's, and private, you do have to be accepted into those programs. It's engineering support for pre-release. Then we talk about public preview. So public preview is where any customers can opt in that want to evaluate and evaluate prior to deployment. But I do think that this is those public previews, you absolutely want to get ahead of things before it's turned on or something's available in your tenant, and you can kind of see this whole insider program across the board. So think about this from a perspective of how early do you want to get involved in what's getting released. And I think that Teams is something that does hit so many companies that it probably is smart to have your pre-prod tenant where you can get involved in some of these programs. Excel Live, just like we have PowerPoint Live, now we have Excel Live with other live experiences that weren't necessarily announced, but that were alluded to coming as well. Here we have multiple people can be working on the Excel file in real time, but also without even having Excel. Pretty amazing. And being able to even do it not only in the desktop, but also on mobile and tablets. The polls for Teams, if you've ever been running Teams meetings, it's more than just multiple choice now. There's some interesting polling that you can actually do. And this does work with your typical Teams webinars, but also during meetings. You can make your meetings much more interactive with the polls for Teams. And again, let's make this practical. I absolutely recommend that you actually set up some polls, do some testing on polls. If there's some education you can do around how to make more out of your meetings, polling is a fantastic way of being able to make your meetings much more engaging and interesting. Teams call history, recording, transcription. There's a lot that's been done there, so you can kind of tell what's happened. You get much more of the transcription from, say, voicemails, and even let's say you're somebody in sales and you actually want to record the entire call. So you have that capability of being able to have a single log of your history, the recordings, and transcriptions from your calls. Pretty powerful from a search perspective, and integration and sales perspective. You can even see some of those headsets or the handsets up top, where there's more and more devices that are actually Teams certified or Teams capable devices. The collaborative meetings, imagine you're looking at a document and you want to be able to get feedback from the audience. You can click annotate and allow people to add sticky notes and do highlighting and marking up of the document, and then it's not necessarily even stored on the document, but you can actually save those annotations. And there's some, we'll talk more about annotations a little bit later, but this collaborative annotations in Teams meetings, pretty powerful. And imagine as well, you're recording this, so you have the ability to go back to the recording and see what's happening. So it's like we're evolving beyond just regular whiteboards, of course. You may have seen these 360 cameras in the past. Maybe this is new as well. But imagine you're in a conference room, and now in the table, you pop up the 360 camera. It detects everybody's faces and can bring them up. And with that IntelliSense or intelligent viewing, being able to capture what are the faces and actually putting them on the screen. So this 360-degree camera, pretty cool. And this I think is one of the biggest things around industry influence and change. Cisco, who's been very big in the telephony and conference room space, is planning on having Teams Room certified devices in early 2023. That's pretty monumental. There's these new rooms called Signature Microsoft Teams Rooms, and these are all about reimagined layout, hardware, tech, kind of being able to give in-room meeting participants face-to-face where the remote attendees appear life-size at eye level right across from them. So I've been in some Cisco similar type of setups, and it's pretty exciting to be able to see Microsoft entering this space for, you know, this real true hybrid experience of just how good can we make the meetings experience. And from a planning perspective, I know this is not quite yet available, but when you start evaluating, okay, we're going to start, you know, evaluating our hardware, we're all going back to the office. I've noticed a ton of companies saying, hey, we actually want to start using Microsoft Teams rooms. Our hardware in our conference rooms is 3 years, it's already 3 to 5 years old. Let's actually put that in the budget. So as you're looking at budgets, it's a good opportunity to be looking at things and saying, how can we have the best experience? Let's look at conference rooms differently based on what released in the past year, but also what's happening this year. And that's definitely a space where there's a lot of room to be able to do exciting things from a planning perspective. Teams chat suggestions, there's some channel enhancements where you can actually have banners up top, being able to pin items. You'll notice over here on the right in the channel experience, we have, here's the people and description and pinned items, shared documents, and search experience. We've got a bunch of things here in this new on the right, but as well, you'll notice we've got our label here. So there's a number of both security enhancements, but also the whole channel experience is much richer as well. The tasks, you've probably seen the tasks in Teams. Well, your ability to be able to push things in there, both tasks and approvals, they're working on APIs for those. And the emoticons that we've been promised are supposed to be coming. 800 new emoticons. The ability to mention and bring someone into the group dynamically. The ability to say at everyone, and everyone who's in the group will get it in their notifications to kind of save you time rather than having to type the group name or something. So let's talk about Teams Premium. Teams Premium is a new offering. It's a new license. It's not E3, it's not E5. It's something you can build on top of your existing licensing. And I understand that's going to be a shock for a lot of people, that it's like, what? There's new Teams licensing? Well, on top of what you've got now, Microsoft, like I said, there's an army who has been working. In fact, there's an even bigger army than the previous army that was working on Teams. And there's so many people working on new and cool and enhanced features that this really pushes beyond anyone in the competition. It's really super cool stuff. So intelligent recap, you basically have AI taking notes while you're working. It's building chapters in the video. It's helping you with building a dynamic agenda. So for anybody who goes back to the meeting afterward, they can see, here's what we discussed at these different points in time. It actually makes suggestions for tasks of things that are happening during the meeting. You can actually see this one. This task was pulled from meeting transcript at 1:12 by Adi Kapoor. Is this a true task? Accept, remove, show me the context so that I can review it and then actually build tasks that are then put right in it. So that's really, really incredible from that perspective. So Teams Premium, what are some of the things that are in Teams Premium? There's a lot. And so we've got Some enhanced security. This enhanced security is advanced meeting protection, including dynamic watermarking, where it'll actually show the user who's viewing it. So if they take screenshots or something like that, or maybe they take a picture with their phone, it's going to show their name on it. Really, really powerful. Something I feel like we've needed for a long time. I hope that actually makes its way to the rest of Office. The end-to-end encryption and sensitivity labels, essentially you can actually label your meetings themselves so that any assets and anything that is related to that meeting is properly secured. Customized meeting branding, you can actually see some of that branding there at the bottom. This ability to have your company logo, be able to kind of have a splash screen for whether you're waiting to join or right before you join, supported by both mobile as well as desktop. We talked about the intelligent recap. This intelligent meetings is supposed to ship in the first half of 2023. As I understand it, the licensing details will be available in early 2023. I've heard January, but let's just say first quarter for sure. Live translation for captions. This gives you the ability to actually do translation on captions, so people can choose what they want to see in the captions as well. So it's like they may be seeing English, but they can switch it to Japanese or Spanish or whatever. There are other translation capabilities. You may see these live translation captions ahead of time. In fact, I heard some debates recently around where they're going to release the public preview so that users can see what it is, and then it might go away and be bundled in Teams Premium. So that's a little bit interesting how that's happening. And they said that even the most recent conversation I had was they're still debating on whether it actually ends up in Premium or whether that one ends up just being available to everyone. As I understand it, there is more language work that's going on. In fact, we'll bring up language again when we talk about Microsoft Syntax. There's also some meeting guides, and these are like templates for improving meetings, like, hey, this is a brainstorm, or this is a client call, or whatever. So you can actually have guides that can actually help improve meetings across the organization as well. Advanced webinars. Some may be saying, hey, why wasn't this actually delivered fully on Teams? Why do we have this weird, it looks like it's Teams, but it also looks like it's GoToWebinar? Well, I'll tell you right now, what we currently have with Teams webinars, there's a number of things that it doesn't have. And when you actually understand what these features are, you'll understand what's missing. The registration wait list and manual approvals is a feature being added. Automated email reminders. Yeah, that would be awesome, right? That's something that's missing today. The virtual green room of being able to choose what you want to show before it goes live, being able to have that staging experience, monitoring Q&A, and so on, and being able to also manage what attendees can actually see. So curating, only sharing what participants want to be shown. And as well, there's some of those security features as well from the other premium aspects of meetings you can use on your webinars as well. So this may also be something that, hey, we want to be able to do these premium webinars. Teams Premium is something that you don't have to assign to every user. So it may be that marketing needs this or the product team needs this. So again, from a planning perspective, as you better understand these features, from a planning perspective and budgeting perspective, you can kind of figure out who and what should be using these. The virtual appointments capabilities, I've heard of people looking at this saying whether it's sales and being able to set up sales calls and meetings, or being able to do this, essentially these virtual appointments in the medical space, it makes a lot of sense. But even in support, you know, hey, we want to set up a quick call, let's put you in the queue. And let's kind of set up this, and then being able to see these virtual appointments, who's available, and being able to drag and drop and move things around from a booking perspective. Talked about these enhanced security. Here we can see we've got the highly confidential internal only label applied here. We've got a verified end-to-end code, so we can make sure we're all on the same. And we've got the watermark along here, which has the email of the person who's attending. And you can actually even see, or not see very well, but this is like an acquisition plan meeting. These really, really sensitive meetings, you want to make sure that no one who should be on here who shouldn't be on here, and so on. Being able to actually really lock things down and secure things in a much more significant way. Pretty powerful. And here's our little translation feature. So being able to see your closed captions and being able to choose the language you want to be able to see. The Microsoft syntax. So in the past year, some people may have been aware of SharePoint syntax. That has grown. It's grown out of what was SharePoint syntax to Microsoft syntax. It does have a number of enhancements to SharePoint and the administration capabilities. But let me just show from a context perspective where Microsoft is positioning this. And this may be actually a good thing when you're starting to look at, step back from what's happening in the, isn't Microsoft 365 just SharePoint, Exchange, and Teams? Well, let's talk about that. You can kind of see the front row where we're talking about where the end users are interacting, and you can see Microsoft Syntax, Viva, OneDrive, Stream, Teams, and Loop. Interesting. So that's our interface. On the back end, we see Search, Graph, Purview, and the Power Platform. Purview is the security. Graph is that those signals that kind of help us understand what's happening around us. And then Search, which we'll talk about a little bit more in this module, is where our connectors are. It's where we expose our data and people and so on. The back end, the storage layers, is Azure and SharePoint with Graph content connectors to be able to pull in third-party content outside the Microsoft cloud. So hopefully this helps us understand these kind of multiple tiers and multiple layers to where Microsoft's going with things. And that even being said, there's definitely a relationship between Teams and Viva not represented in this, but hopefully this really helps you start to understand how Microsoft is kind of looking at the vision of what these things are all about. One of my favorite features of syntax is the summarizing of a document. Imagine you've been searching for some information of something that was done in the past, and you're just trying to wrap your head around it. So you're running, loading up the document, and you're saying, hey, you can get a summary. You click Get Summary, and now you can actually get file summary of chapters throughout this long document, where you can then dive into, oh, this is actually what I'm looking at. What did we promise in this contract? So you can then jump to that point. Some people do a good job of building, nice structured documents. There's a lot of people who don't do a good job of building out structured documents. So being able to do summaries can really help. AI can analyze your document and help you then locate things. One of the other major features to syntax is document translation. Imagine being able to say, we have, let's say you're in Canada and you've got French and English, and you want to be able to quickly say, all these French documents, we want to take these documents and actually produce duplicate documents, but in French, or the French ones into English, and essentially it'll just create a copy of that document, translate it into the new language, just with an _en. Now when you're doing search, now when you're actually trying to understand and get your head around this, it'll essentially translate the documents for you. And this is going to be a process that's done with Microsoft Syntex. There's some signature capabilities. There's a new Microsoft Syntex sign capabilities, but also integration with the PDF e-sign as well as DocuSign. Document automation and auto-populating documents based on SharePoint lists. Really, really powerful things. And you can actually see that e-signature capability being demonstrated here, being able to show where did the e-signature come? Well, we can actually have multiple sign capabilities and support. Enhancements to search, enhanced metadata search queries. This is a really big deal, especially if you're doing any kind of structured content, structured data in lists and libraries. That ability to have enhanced metadata search, and it's very contextual. It understands what the lists and libraries, columns, and so on are, to be able to do enhanced search. Annotation and inking right on the documents, and then being able to do this without actually modifying that original PDF, without modifying that original document. So that, and then it can be saved with the document. Pretty powerful. Here's an example of some natural language processing based AI search capabilities, where you can actually ask a question and it's looking inside the documents, not just looking for documents that match those words. How many solar panels to charge a home? Well, the solar panel fact sheet says it's between 14 to 36. I can imagine when you start talking about company policies, travel policies, and you're just wanting to say, how many days off does a standard employee get? It look at the policy documents and being able to pull that out. Pretty powerful. And I can imagine this is only going to get better and better, but this is pretty groundbreaking. Those who are looking for when these things are available, you can kind of see real quick if you want to just grab that screenshot. Okay. So there were a number of other announcements made in that same SharePoint governance Microsoft Syntex session. Any SharePoint people definitely need to see that session. People who are using storage and concerned about storage, there's a number of new features: site attestation, data governance, managing storage, where you can actually archive to Azure, permissions validation, archiving features, a lot of lifecycle management stuff where you can actually see, and I know this is going to be hard to see, but it says, so far you've used 1.2 terabytes of your available storage, and here we have, so far you've used 0% of your archive storage. So essentially we can allocate Azure storage and being able to archive whether it's unused sites or backup sites, or being able to do kind of hierarchical storage, where we're actually leveraging a cheap tier for storage so that SharePoint's not going over our allocation. Really powerful. There's a number of new features around backup, archiving, restoring. So those, whether it's 30 days of expiration or 92 days or 93 days on the SharePoint side for some of the recycle bins, being able to not have to worry about those, and especially if we're trying to do cleanup, we want to be able to archive or back up before we do any major archive or any kind of lifecycle management, push data out. I think about teams as well, that ability to archive the teams. We don't want just 30 days. We want to be able to say, no, I've got this if I need it for e-discovery and so on. Hybrid work, and I understand we'll have to speed up a little bit here, but this when you talk about industry trends, there's some really interesting data in the Work Trend Index, which is essentially a third-party study that was done that was sponsored by Microsoft. Go ahead and take a screenshot of this link here. This was a an interesting study where employees report that they're productive at 87%. So essentially they're being able to say, no, 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 we're actually very productive working from home. Leave us alone. Leaders, on the other hand, are saying they have full confidence that their team is productive at only 12%. That's pretty incredible. And of those leaders that we're talking about here, 85% say that the shift to hybrid work has made it a challenge to have confidence that employees are being productive, even though the employees are saying, you know what, we've actually found productivity. We are being productive. We're just as productive at home as we were at work. Leave us alone. These trends and our ability to be able to prove that is still a challenge, and I think that's kind of well stated in this report, and is definitely something that can be helpful. So what are the features around this? And definitely from a trend perspective, how can we do better here? So both in Office, in Outlook and Teams, the ability to see who is where. So essentially users can say, I'm going to be working from home between this hour and this hour, or on these days. And so when you go to actually book a conference room, you can see, well, how many people are actually going to be in the office? Oh, there's only 2. Well, then we can do this. Well, let's choose the time when more are in the office versus remote. So we have little icons to kind of help illustrate that, but from both a scheduling perspective, but even an RSVP perspective, when people accept a meeting, instead of just saying, yes, I'm going to be there, they can say, yes, I'm going to be there remote, or yes, in the office. So if it's a conference room, you can make sure that that it actually is going to fit those who say they're going to be there. As well, you can kind of see here in the screenshot up here, we're in Teams, and you can set your work location. Are you working from the office? Are you working remote? Go ahead and go back into the Outlook calendar, and you can actually say, these days I'm working from home, these days I'm working remote. So you can do it dynamically. You can essentially set your calendar, and even at the item level, you can essentially respond. Maybe it's like, you know what, I'm going to be working from home in the morning, but because there's a Diwali festival lunch, I'm going to go to work for lunch, and then I'll work for the afternoon if there's any good meetings. And yeah, you're seeing a little bit of my world. So Microsoft Places really embraces this concept of hybrid work. I'm going to work from home on Mondays. I'm going to work from the office on Tuesday, or on a Wednesday, I'm actually only going to be there. 70% of the team is going to be there. Imagine what that means from a planning perspective, and how can we actually get ahead of this? Well, this is a new announcement from Microsoft called Microsoft Places, where you can get indications on who's going to be there, and being able to get better analytics, better space and availability, planning your electricity, and better planning rooms, being able to say, hey, these are overflow. If the conference rooms are all full, we don't want to just have no place where people can book. So being able to actually have kind of a layover space even. So there's all sorts of aspects here to be able to help manage this whole remote experience. As well, the conference room finder experience, that much richer. So being able to find workspaces, being able to find places where we can do collaboration, whether it's a stand-up area or kind of a working hoteling space, where we can say, I'm going to assign myself to this desk. So this whole workspaces, Microsoft Places, is kind of extends a lot more in further locations. The administration side of it, you can actually see Teams rooms and meeting rooms and analytics on utilization. What days are the ones to be in the office, and where there may be overutilization. So being able to have much more of a dynamic space, and much more for a planning perspective, you think about a lot of companies are analyzing, well, hey, you know what? We've kind of been embracing this work from home. Maybe we can give up this floor. Well, what would it mean? Well, now we actually can get analytics and manage our spaces a lot better from a utilization perspective. Real briefly on the Power Platform side, the ability to do, there's some really cool stuff around code and being able to have AI generate code for us, and even being able to have kind of natural language description of what we want it to do. Hey, I want an app that does this, and it'll kind of give us some suggestions and recommendations for components. Co-authoring in Power Apps. Here we can see, also here is Alex, who is now also working on this. So in the past, it was very kind of difficult with the check-in, check-out, and how do we make sure people aren't stepping on each other. Now we can actually have more of a collaborative experience working on these spaces, as an example.
Hey, Joel, at this rate, we won't have to do anything. Just stay at home and the AI will do everything for us, huh? Write the code, schedule the meeting, and assign us tasks.
Virtual assistants to help us out here.
Yeah, I mean, we could just, do other things, right?
Yeah. And I am out of time. I want to just summarize real quick these last few slides. There's a new automation center in Power Apps. Our ability to export to PDF, and a little bit more of the roadmap. And the Viva suite, there's Viva Home. The kind of highlight thing here is a number of apps that are available. Viva Engage, which is kind of a Yammer rebrand, but so much more, with storylines and topics, which we've seen, insights, pulse, goals. Coming soon, the multiple home sites and more branding, enhanced adaptive cards for Viva Connections, Viva Learning. There's some enhancements there to that experience. The daily briefing, recaps, the Viva Goals, Viva Engage, Viva Pulse, Viva Amplify, and some new Microsoft 365 apps. You'll notice some new branding around Office, the new redesigned OneDrive home experience, which is more like office.com experience. This kind of person-focused home experience, and you'll notice the Office app is becoming the Microsoft 365 app, so you're going to see some more branding around that. Loop, where we can do more delivery across the web, whiteboard, and Outlook. The new Microsoft Designer app, the video app called Clipchamp, audience targeting in Outlook, which is a cool one, sensitivity labels in DLP and M365 docs, and Loop components, and more on Engage with storylines, Amplify, and there we are.
Wow.
So I want to hand it over to you, Scott, for a bit before we look at the Q&A.
Well,
I can for more questions too.
Yeah. There aren't too many questions posted, and people can feel free to do that right now. But it definitely, this whole the whole presentation and what I've seen from other Ignite, summary parties and stuff that we've been having, it's just so much going on. It's really, really fascinating and encouraging. I think a lot of this is probably a little far out there for people yet. People who are just getting used to using Teams, or just getting used to moving to the cloud. And now, let me ask you this, Joel. For people who are on SharePoint on premises, I mean, we got 2019, now the SE edition. I don't see any mention of that at all at Ignite. Or is that just like not, I mean, you're either on Office 365 and you get all the Viva and Teams and all that, but if you're on premises, what's the story there? SharePoint on the time move to Office 365? Is that the story?
I think some people are still kind of confused, like this new SharePoint subscription edition. I think those who are on-prem are probably looking, some who aren't. It seems like most people are looking at the cloud and trying to get there, but those who, for whatever reason, are still convinced that they need to keep their on-prem stuff, that subscription edition, it's essentially like a cloud bundle, but for your data center. I don't think that there was much said at Ignite, and I think it was because they did that. They mentioned it earlier, and I haven't heard any major updates in relation to that. Yeah, but
Yeah, but
I don't think it's just a smaller audience now. I think it's also something they're not, that there's those who are working on it, and then there's everything else, and where the muscle really is.
well, a lot of what you were showing is really about cooperate, teams and meetings and
Yeah.
cooperation and collaboration between remote and hybrid. I remember one feature that I thought was kind of cool that was at the Ignite, show we did in the Southern California, and that was that, say you have a meeting, you don't attend it because some reason, the software will actually summarize certain bullet points just by through some kind of AI process, I guess, and so you can actually get a summary generated from the meeting recording, and then you
Yeah,
just have to.
yeah, yeah. The Teams Premium summarize, that ability to do summary of, imagine you just did an entire hour of a meeting, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah,
But your ability to get the chapters, who presented what, and being able to get a nice summary of the action items, I think that's super powerful.
sure,
That's a
generating tasks right from the meeting and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What was discussed and who was saying it, and being able to jump to certain points. This auto-generating chapters of the video, so you can go right to where whatever was discussed. That's really powerful in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of that's going on. So, as far as you showed some stuff about redoing the team's channels too, which I think Stephen Rose, when he was giving the presentation, went into more detail about that. But I think that's an enhancement to Teams that's probably immediately available to people because it is people are already using channels. It's not like they have to get Teams Premium or Viva or avatars. The channels are already there in Teams. So if they get enhanced, then that's an improvement right away to something they could already be using inside of Teams. Get more like put a more like web kind of look to the Teams channel, I guess is what we're going for there, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that how people organize their data, um, how they put some muscle behind what they're working on. A lot of where Microsoft has been focusing is, let's get people into Teams. Let's help them build their workplace environment where they can have access to everything they need to do to reduce context switching, and to kind of provide that ability to have chat around what you're doing, whether it's working on documents or you're working on um, an assembly line or whatever. You've got it on your phone, or you're out at a field site and you've got a tablet and you're walking around and you're filling out your survey, and then also being able to do your time card. It's like that ability to be able to kind of very easily do more of those frontline worker scenarios. What traditionally would have been information worker, they've got a lot more that brings the frontline into this as well. And I'll tell you, as somebody who lives on their phone, um, I'm finding myself picking up my laptop less and less every day, um,
Yeah,
because I can be so productive on them.
yeah, you can feel a lot more productive on the mobile and cloud experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
One thing is governance. We're partnering with Rencor, a great company that's a great
yeah,
365 and Teams governance. I know Microsoft has a center of excellence for governance already, but there's really room for third-party governance tools. Just like us, there's room for third-party business process automation tools that we provide, like Nitro Studio.
yeah,
So I think
absolutely.
there's what was encouraging about this is I think Microsoft is not saying, oh, only this, only that, only Power Platform, only Viva, only their governance. There's room for Croquet Software and the many other vendors out there who are doing these third-party solutions to really
Yeah,
enhance
I
it.
think that's really really important that people start to understand. And people who've been in the industry, people who've been working with Microsoft, they know that Microsoft goes. We kind of called it the 80/20 rule for the longest time, where it's like there's a lot you can get out of the box, and then there's buy or build. You want to get something off the shelf that gives you the integration or the horsepower or the connectors, or um, there's a variety of capabilities that when you start to realize, there's gaps that Microsoft left, if they were to do everything, they would have a lot less products.
You're
And
right.
so they build this with the idea of ecosystem in mind. You know, Microsoft is very regularly running Microsoft Kitchens, this idea of let's bring in the vendors, help them understand where we left gaps on purpose so we can actually have partners who fill those gaps.
Right,
And
right. It's a lot to implement for any company to implement all these new
absolutely.
things anyway. It's just
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
In fact, there's
absolutely.
a conference in Las Vegas, December 6th and 7th, the M365 conference, M365 conference at the MGM Grand. We're going to be sponsoring that. One of them,
Awesome.
I mean, one of the many sponsors. Let me put it that way. And
I love the conferences and events. It's great to see the community and to see customers who are just hungry to get more information, and it's a great opportunity to meet some of the people from the product teams, but also to meet MVPs and people who
yeah,
can answer questions that you've got.
yeah. Oh, here's some questions coming in. Let me see if I can. We're at the top of the hour, but maybe we can get to these. Okay, which ones are most impactful? Which one will have the soonest impact? And any new features for GCC High? I think that I can answer GCC High. That's usually rolled out later after the
It's
commercial.
true. I think that Microsoft is doing a better job of, especially from a roadmap perspective. I would point anybody who's like, hey, when are we going to see these things? Go out to the web. Just you can actually pretty much just type it, Microsoft 365 roadmap, and it's the first result. Um, and that Microsoft 365 roadmap, the URL is microsoft.com, and then there's /en-us/microsoft-365/roadmap. And like I said, all you got to do is search for Microsoft 365 roadmap, and it'll give it to you.
That's right.
And
Oh, here
what
it
you
is.
can do is you can filter based on product. You can focus. You can hit the drop down of cloud instance, where you
Yeah,
can then hit the
GCC High. Yeah.
checkbox for GCC High or DoD or GCC, and be able to see, hey, show me everything in Teams that's coming for GCC High, so you can actually get that breakdown on when it'll be available. And something I would caution anybody who's like, hey, they said they release it on this date. There's always, it's not unusual for them to slip on
There
things,
it is.
but also when you start thinking about this in terms of rings, there's release rings, and it's important to understand where you are in the rings from a release perspective. Like, when is it going to hit my tenant? It's almost like, never tell your end users that it's going to hit on the date that they say. You've got to build 2 or 3 months in, or at least a month in, based on the ability for them to roll it out. You rarely, if ever, will you see it on the date that they say, because it takes a while for things to kind of slowly roll out.
Yeah, of course, of course. It's a
And
it's
you'll
a
be a lot
map.
smarter if you do build some buffer into your planning.
That's right. That's right. Okay, well, we're hitting the top of the hour. I think people might schedule an hour for this, so we can end it pretty soon. But thank you very much, Joel. It was really great, and hopefully we'll get this information out to more audiences, either another webinar or people can find out a lot of stuff by going to the roadmap, as you're saying, and put that in, or attend
Absolutely.
one of the conferences that are out there and speak directly with MVPs. Also, we're thinking of having more activities in California. If anyone's in California, either in SoCal or up Sacramento or Silicon Valley area. Joel's down in SoCal. I'm in the North Bay. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. So us and other MVPs and vendors are looking to put on more in-person shows. Well, shows, it's like presentations, conferences, anything we can help the community with. And
Yeah.
so look for that. Probably 2023, right, Joel? You started like after, of course, after.
2023 January,
Yeah.
we're talking about some events, probably one in NorCal, one in SoCal early in the year. So
Yeah.
whether it's an event or a user group meeting, you'll probably see one or both of those. And if you're looking for, how do I get to find out more, feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. Just search for my name. I'm kind of an Uber networker. It shouldn't be hard to find me. Anyway, I'm happy to share that. There's also a meetup that the user group has for Southern California, but we've been sharing NorCal info with the group as well.
Okay, Joel, one last question. Then it says, what is the fifth country you'll be visiting? Mauritania? But you've been to Mauritania, haven't you, in Africa? You've been there.
I have. I'm going to Timor-Leste.
Okay.
In,
Timor-Leste is next. Okay.
yeah, Timor-Leste. That's number 5. So yeah,
There
the
you
hard
go.
one that I'm struggling with right now, if anybody has any help, is Libya.
Libya, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's gonna be my last, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know how you, I don't know anything about that other than get a boat and land on the beach or something. I don't know.
Right.
But anyway, thank you very much, Joel, and thank you everyone for attending. Oh, he's asking if you ever been to Algeria. Someone's asking if you've been.
I have been to Algeria. Yeah, fantastic trip.
Yeah, that must have been great.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining. I really appreciate it. Thanks again, Scott, for hosting this for us, and really appreciate everybody who's able to join.
Okay, we
And
hope we meet each other one way or other. We'll meet up again somewhere, either online or in person, and continue the conversation. Thanks, Joel.
absolutely.
Okay,
See you
bye
later.
bye.